The Institute is at the core of what NYU Abu Dhabi is.
It will help NYU Abu Dhabi to propel it into an intellectual, an educational, and a cultural center of the Middle East and ultimately of the world.
The idea of the Institute was to create a forum where the leading thinkers from around the world would come. And they would share this love affair that we have with Abu Dhabi, and they would enliven the intellectual life of Abu Dhabi.
The Institute organizes scholarly activity across a wide range of subjects and advanced research.
One of the most exciting aspects of the Institute is that scholars, researchers, artists from around the world come together to discuss vitally new ideas. Over the last year, there have been over 100 such programs, bringing scholars, researchers, artists to interact with Abu Dhabi researchers, Abu Dhabi faculty, Abu Dhabi students, and the Abu Dhabi community.
The Science of Sad Sounds is a good example of an institute program. We had a professor in the humanities, really had a scientific underpinning as well.
It starts off with a C minor chord. It goes Bidim, bidim, da-dum, da. Okay, some of you may know it, some of you may just think I'm being ridiculous. But that first chord, this is in the minor mode. It doesn't sound sad, but it does sound serious.
The 99 is an artistic project that seeks to really create bridges between people who don't know about Islam and the Muslim world.
This talk is really about the power of media to change a whole civilization, to change their way of thinking. Is what we have something that's in a format that can cross boundaries? So, okay, great, it's a comic book, now what?
The Reza Aslan lecture was packed. His points of view were extremely important.
If you're sitting across a negotiating table from a country whose stated policy is to remove you from power, what is there to talk about?
Africa and the Indian Ocean Conference was a good example of the Institute's work. The theme itself, Africa and the Indian Ocean, itself stresses the links between continents.
So it does appear that the Indian Ocean was very much present in the Americas during the early part of the transatlantic slave trade.
We had a great group of people, a lot of whom didn't know each other, and we hope, as we always hope with our conferences, that the network created here will out-survive the end of the conference, that they will sustain the dialogues and then bring them back eventually to us. This conference on art museums here now brought to Abu Dhabi some of the most distinguished directors of museums from around the world.
How do museums and cultural institutions foster the development of a homegrown grassroots arts, the way that, for example, Mohammed Kano already has been doing for a long time with the Gough Gallery?
The challenges are huge. The list is great, but we deal with them.
The Institute has provided a series of performances. By starting a tradition of theatrical production, we're on the way to showing that NYUAD can really be a force in the development of Abu Dhabi's own aspirations.
Well, chaos was extremely important in my view. Ruben Polendo, who's the director of the chaos production, is very interested in drawing on different dramaturgical traditions of the world, and that was very much on display at that production on the beach.
Because we couldn't find a theater that was the right size and the right fit for it, we decided to create this temporary venue that sat on the beach in the Corniche. The Institute was such a terrific ally. I felt like everyone around the table was committed to making this work, was committed to dealing with the challenges, and was committed to deferring to the artistic side of the piece.
One of the most spectacular events, consequential events, hosted by the Institute was the visit of Gordon Brown. His address to the Institute spoke to the shift in global markets and what the consequences for the future economic world will be.
This is a crisis of globalization that has not gone away. 50 years from now, people will look back and say, we are undergoing the biggest economic transformation that the world has ever seen. Just as we had to move from local economies to national structures of decision-making 2 centuries ago in Europe and America, We've got to move to understanding that we're part of a global society with the institutions that are necessary to deal with real global problems.
That event, I think, captured the essence of NYU Abu Dhabi, the institute, the curriculum, the nature of the student body and the faculty with its international diversity.
It led the Abu Dhabi community to become more conscious of its own mission, which is to produce leaders through its students and through its faculty who will bring about that kind of global policy articulation and implementation.
And so it is that constant, continuous ability to bring top discourse to Abu Dhabi that I think has been one of the great success stories of the Institute.
It was a gift that we could bring to Abu Dhabi itself and say, here are leading thinkers for you to enjoy, the bounty of intellectual fruit that they have.
The students have an exposure to an extraordinary range of intellectuals, world leaders, important thinkers.
Whenever I needed any kind of special information on something that was not available on campus, I could probably go to the Institute and they'd bring whoever I wanted to come and give a speech. And that was unprecedented. It's like having your own TED conference in NYU.
So the research arm has, as a main goal, is really the place where the new ideas in the area where research is needed to come up with new ideas to think of really solving the great problems in our society.
Whether it be our economics department working on the economics of development through the use of cell phones in sub-Saharan Africa, or some of our great neuroscientists and linguists working on the language of this area and how the brain processes languages. There's a range of high-level research that's done through the Institute as well.
One of the leading projects of the Institute will be a multi-year analysis of climate change and ocean currents and the ways in which they interact.
And these will, in fact, guide a lot of very important decisions as we move forward in the next century.
I would say that one of the most exciting and satisfying aspects of our curriculum and interests of our student body is in acquiring Arabic, is in understanding in depth the literary heritage of the Arabic world.
One project which I love is what Professor Philip Kennedy is doing in creating synoptic translations, Arabic and English, of the great works of Arab literature. This has never been done, and it will be a gift to future generations that is priceless.
So the Institute, whatever the form, it's a kind of laboratory for thinking about what the next steps are, how to go forward in the university and in Abu Dhabi.
The most important mission for the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute is to draw on the ideas, the talent, and the perspective of the world, whether it's in research or it's in academic discussions, and draw from those new synergies of understanding, new levels of consensus that will create a more global perspective, and through that, a more inclusive and peaceful world.